Here's Chad Norton, the lawn doctor, with a tip for your lawn.
Warmer temperatures have both weeds and grass competing for space in your yard. Dandelions, thistle, clover, morning glory will all be kept under better control when you have us applying pre-emergence and weed control. At the same time, we can feed your grass to make sure it wins the battle and keep it lush and growing all season long. Regular visits from the lawn doctor will help your lawn be healthier and pest-free.
Fertilizer, weed, and pest control. Call Chad Norton, the lawn doctor, at 753-LAWN. Follow them on Facebook or go to lawndoctorcashvalley.com.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Monday on This Morning, America's First News. To avoid subjects like inflation, crime, and immigration, Democrats running for re-election are trying to sell voters on deliverables. Here are the pitches. Also, you'll recall the Trump administration levied tariffs on China. At least one observer says the Biden administration could ease inflation by lifting them. And college athletes who have to pay taxes. Monday on This Morning, America's First News. Monday morning from 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Go! Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
Good morning and welcome to the Garden Guide. This is Mark Anderson with Anderson Seed and Garden, and we are here this morning to help you with your garden questions. We're here to answer your questions, hopefully help you find some solutions for some of those garden problems, and more importantly, get you excited about spring. Spring fever is going crazy, and with this colder, wet weather, it's kind of slowed things down and allowed us to take a breath and kind of regroup. But it's a perfect time to get outside and really do some planting, get things rolling for spring. So I'm a little bit behind in my garden. I've only got my peas and my spinach, and I'm hoping to plant some onions this weekend. But we're moving into hopefully a little bit warmer temperatures where we're not going to have those low 20s anymore, and we can start planting some of those mid-spring crops, like carrots and beets and chard and potatoes, parsnips, all those things. We're kind of moving into that next category of plants that we can plant that can handle a light frost, but they like warmer soil temperatures. So, that we've had some great weather, some wonderful rain this week, and it's a great way to keep the spring rolling, but it's time to start thinking about some different things as well, too. At Anderson's, we've got a lot of things going on. Bare root sale is still happening at Anderson Seed and Garden, so we've still got some bare root fruit trees. We've got raspberries. I just got a brand new batch of strawberries in yesterday, so some great bare root strawberries. Onion plants arrived this week. We've got potatoes. We've got asparagus. We've got blueberries and grapes and all kinds of great things available still in bare root, and the weather is perfect for getting outside and doing some transplanting. So don't forget about the bare root sale. It continues to go on. We do have a special for today. So if you're listening today, we've got a great selection of primroses that just came in yesterday, and got a great price on those. It's 2 for $4. So these are 4-inch primroses. They're in full bloom. They look amazing. Lots of great color for spring. They are 2 for $4. So it's a great deal on primroses if you'd like to stop in at Anderson's, pick up a little bit of color for your yard to go with your tulips or your daffodils that are blooming right now. And the flowers have been amazing with this cooler weather. They've been able to last, even with the snow. They've been able to keep a little bit of color going this last week or two. So. One reminder, we've got our spring open house coming up next week at Anderson Seed and Garden. It's April 22nd through 23rd. We've always got some great specials going on. We've got some great deals on plants. We've got some great deals on products, and we'll have a flyer going out in the mail this week, so kind of watch for that. Spring open house, we call it our Spring Spectacular at Anderson Seed and Garden, and that is next weekend. So we will have some great things going on at Anderson's, and a lot of spring fever going around. So we're not keeping keeping track of COVID cases anymore here in Utah, but we're tracking spring fever cases at Anderson Seed and Garden, and I think we had about 250 yesterday. So that's how it works. But I've got a special guest on the show today, and it's Russ Holley from Logan City Community Development, and we're going to be talking about the amended ordinance that we just passed at Logan City for park strips. Russ, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you here on the show. And, everybody kind of doesn't understand park strips and what they are and what they do. And they actually serve a really good purpose in our community.
Yes, they do. They provide a buffer between a sidewalk and a street. And they give us the opportunity to plant trees and other plants to beautify our streetscape.
Yes. And cool things down.
Yes, cool things down.
Yeah.
And the terminology was one of the amendments that was made. A lot of folks think park and park your car.
Yes.
But it's actually park, the neighborhood park where you go play soccer. That's the terminology. And so park strip is a green strip of land between the curb and the sidewalk. They vary depending on what neighborhood you live in. Some of them are a little bit wider, and some of them are a little bit narrower.
You get downtown and on Center Street, and some of those older homes, and you've got a different size park strip than you do in some of the newer communities that we've got going in Logan. So, it never ceases to amaze me though when a park strip is done correctly. It's beautiful. It's cooler. You get to walk underneath those trees on the sidewalk. It's just a pleasant environment. And when some of those trees are in bloom, you get to smell, the scent coming off the trees, and it just is a great experience just walking underneath there. There's some beautiful trees on 2nd East, sycamores all along there that go from about 5th North all the way almost out to the middle school. And I remember as a kid riding the bus through there and just like watching the trees, and as they've grown over time and they've kind of encompassed that entire street, and now you have just this corridor underneath the trees, and that's good memories.
Yeah.
So that's what park strips can be like. But with this change in the ordinance, and it's not really a change, it's more of just an amendment. So we still have the same rules that we had before, but we've just added some possibilities, some additional opportunities for people to be a little bit more water wise.
Yeah, and now when it comes to trees, that pretty much stayed the exact same. Trees are supposed to be placed about every 30 feet. You don't want to put a tree right near an intersection. So if you're on a corner, there's some sight distance safety standards there. And trees should always be deciduous, right?
Yes.
We don't want evergreen trees because that blocks visibility, and that's a safety concern as well. And they grow horizontally, and pretty soon, you're trying to walk down the sidewalk and you get stuck with a pine needle.
No blue spruce on in the park strip then.
Correct.
So they will get quite large. And the city forester is always available to anyone who is curious about what trees they should plant to help with. We do have some overhead power lines. A lot of the new developments in Logan City, electricity is underground, but a lot of the older parts of Logan, a lot of power lines and foresters on top of that.
Correct. Yeah, Rex Davis is a great resource for folks. If you want to contact him, he can help you out as far as species and pruning, things of that nature.
Yeah. And, definitely he's got a list of great varieties of trees that will look beautiful, give us some diversity to our urban forest as well, too. So diversity is really nice because it's like there's certain parts of town where it's just maple after maple after maple after maple. And I love maples. It's one of my favorite trees. But if we have so many of the same tree, if we were to get a disease or an insect that came through and we don't have much diversity, all of a sudden a lot of our trees are declining and not doing very well. So he's got a great list of trees available, some that don't get too big, some that have beautiful flowers but don't drop stuff all over the place. And, having trees in your park strip, so important for our environment, and especially in our urban landscape where we want to keep things cool and a little bit more attractive during the summertime.
Yes. So what did change was the ground cover options. Traditionally, everyone put, bluegrass down along with their trees.
Right.
Now we're giving folks more options to conserve water. So if you do not want the bluegrass, you could design a more water-wise landscape. You still can do the bluegrass option. That is still an option, but you can do a more water-wise option. There are still some requirements for up to 30% plant material, so it cannot be zero plant material. You'd need some shrubbery or some ornamentals.
So no river rock, just river rock out there, or boulders, or just even lava rock or bark. We want some plant material out there.
Yes, so rock works as long as it's 70% or less.
Yeah.
And a combination of rock or bark. I always like a little bit of visual interest.
Yeah.
If you do it's just like your comment on the maples. If all you do is the exact same rock, it doesn't have that variety and visual interest.
Yeah, for sure. 30% plant material, 70% of a mulch, decorative mulch, something a little bit different. And on the turf varieties, we don't even have to do Kentucky bluegrass. I had my grass expert here a couple of weeks ago, Doug, with the Granotech Seed, and we were talking about turf-type fescues and turf-type rye, and they're gorgeous, and they use a lot less water, and they stay really, really green, and they're very insect and disease resistant, and just beautiful grasses that will use much, much less water than, say, a Kentucky bluegrass. And it is a lot easier if your park strip is bigger. Yeah, we're not doing 3-foot strips anymore in Logan. Are we? What's our sizing on the new park strips?
We try to get a 5-foot minimum, and they typically range between 5 and 8 now when we build a new street.
5 to 8 feet. That does give you a lot more flexibility when it comes to turf, because a little bit of irrigation out there, and you could do a turf type fescue and water once a week, and keep that green all summer, even with 2 weeks of 100-degree temperatures like we had last year. It would still stay green all summer long, and keep that turf appearance out there. I think grass gets a bad rap sometimes. It's like everybody's like, oh, we don't want grass. We want to rip all of our grass out. And grass serves a really great function in our community. Not only does it create a lot of oxygen, but it traps a lot of dirt and a lot of dust, and it keeps mud from collecting. And when we get a big, heavy rainstorm, it filters that water, and it keeps it from running down the street. My son lives in Arizona, and they get a rainstorm, and there's nothing to stop it. It just like goes all over the place. But turf will trap that water and collect it and hold it there, pulls that water down into the soil, so we get that ground moisture. So I love turf. We just don't have to water it 3 times a week if you do it right. So 30% plant material, and we're talking, it could be ground covers, it could be there's a lot of great options, I think, for our listeners here in Logan to flip their strip is the phrase that the state's using right now to put some different plants in.
Yeah, and I would suggest contacting you or a local expert on the varieties.
Yes.
There are a couple things that we discourage, and that is plants that could be dangerous as far as like thorns.
Yes.
Or that visibility issue. So a tall hedge is not a good idea.
Right.
If you have folks walking down the sidewalk and someone's pulling in and out of the driveway, that visibility poses a safety risk.
Is there a height limitation? Do we have a height limitation? I can't remember.
3 feet.
3 feet.
Yep.
Okay. So you could have a very short hedge of, say, boxwoods that would be maybe 2 feet tall, something nice you could shear and keep tidy and pretty and nice there.
Yes,
that would look really good. Utah State University Extension has a lot of different plans available to flip your strip and do something different. On the Utah State website that is called Flip the Strip, they have a whole bunch of different plans on there. And there's some that are super water-wise, and there's some that are a little bit more decorative, and some that are a little bit more edible. And, it's like there's some really great options of some different, herbs you could put out there and plants that would produce some flowers, give you some color and some interest, but still be very, very water conscious. And that's one thing we probably should remind everybody. These park strips are not zero water. They do need irrigation.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely do need irrigation. So the new ordinance does require water supplied to that area. And so, new construction will be required to have water out there.
Correct.
Yeah. Sprinklers. Did you know, Russ, that if you switch your sprinklers to a drip, to actually a soaker hose, you'll use 70% less water than you would with a sprinkler. But if you switch it to a drip, it'll use 90% less water. But it delivers the water right to the root zone of the plants. And so you can maintain the same plants that you've had in the past with a sprinkler and use 90% less water.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. So I think a lot of people misunderstand that when we talk about xeriscaping, xeriscaping's using native or really, really water tolerant, less water tolerant plants, super drought tolerant plants. You don't need to irrigate those. This isn't the type of plants that we are talking about putting in the park strip. They need to be irrigated, and they'll stay green and a little bit more attractive longer, but you don't have to use a lot of water. I mean, when you switch that irrigation system there to a drip system instead of sprinklers, you're going to cut your water usage by 90% and still be able to have amazing, beautiful, traditional plants in those areas and still keep that looking good. So we do have phone lines open if you'd like to call and ask questions. If you've got questions about this ordinance amendment in Logan City, or even if you don't live in Logan City, you'd like to do something different with your park strip, we would be happy to try and answer your questions. We're kind of talking water conservation today, but a lot of different things that are happening outside, whether it's fire blight prevention, whether we're controlling weeds. Weeds are just popping up all over the place. Whether you want to fertilize your lawn, whether you want to plant some early crops, if you've got some raspberry issues, phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868 if you'd like to join us here on the show. And Al's here, just ready to answer your
I'm here.
Barely. your phone calls. But we're talking park strip and water conservation and how to use less water and be conscientious of our environment and our water usage here in Logan. So, you take a sprinkler system that's like traditionally watering your landscape, and you swap that out and put a drip system in, you'll decrease your water usage by 90%.
Wow, that's amazing.
It really does. It really does make that much of a difference. So if you're used to burning bush and traditional evergreens, like a boxwood or a yew, or some beautiful flowering shrubs like a hibiscus or a hydrangea, you don't have to tear those out. You can just switch your watering system from a sprinkler to a dripper and save 90% water. It's amazing. So I personally appreciate your work trying to put this amendment together for our park strip ordinance. I know it's been difficult for people in the past, and there's been a lot of interest in Logan about changing their park strips over to something more water-wise. And for you to do the research and go through the process and take it to the Planning Commission and then to City Council to get that approved, that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, thank you. And I think a lot of people struggle because it's not connected to their front yard, or it because of the width, it doesn't grow the same.
Right.
And it gets a little bit more heat in that area because you have asphalt on one side,
and
concrete
sidewalk on the other. Yeah, it's
and
definitely
so
hotter.
It warrants a little different approach and maybe a different design.
Yeah. And I think a lot of homeowners forget that, the park strip does have different needs, have different conditions. It's a completely different microcosm of their yard, and it does need some unique care to keep it looking really good. We do have a caller though, so we're gonna jump out there to our caller. We've got Laurie on the line. Laurie, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Hi, thank you.
How are you doing today?
Hey, I have a question
Yeah.
about my raspberries. You said you need to spray them or something for this cane borer.
So we've got two borers. Yeah, we've got two kinds of borers that affect the raspberries. You've got crown borer and you've got cane borer. Now, the crown borer attack the root system right where the canes come out of the ground. And right now is a really great time to treat for crown borer. And we use permethrin for that. And I just mix it up in a watering can and then just water the raspberries with it. And then that insecticide will stay in the ground. It really doesn't bother the raspberries at all. It's in the ground. But that's where those crown borers attack the raspberries. And it'll stay out there for 2 months. If we mix it up properly, it'll stay there for 2 months and protect your patch from crown borer. The most indicative, I guess the biggest indicator that you got crown borer is just part of your raspberries just start dying back. Most of the time you don't really notice it, but the raspberries will just start to die back, and you'll have whole big sections of your raspberries that die out. So crown borer are a little more difficult to identify until you see the damage. Cane borer is an insect that comes and lays its eggs on the canes, and then as those eggs hatch out, the borers will go into the canes, and then they go up, and then the tops of your canes will curl over and turn a really dark green and then go brown and crispy in the summertime. The best way to prevent that is to spray them with, again, permethrin right before they bloom, and then again about 2 to 3 weeks afterwards. And so raspberries generally are blooming about mid-May, so kind of plan on mid-May right before those blossoms open up to do an application of permethrin. Spinosad works pretty well too. It just doesn't last as long as the permethrin. And they're both safe to use on edibles, very safe to use on your raspberries, but very effective at controlling this particular insect. So.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Great time to plant new raspberries. Excellent time to fertilize and use a little bit of iron as well too. So don't forget about that, Lori.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much for calling. You have a wonderful weekend. All right, we've got phone lines open still, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. And that's if you'd like to join us here on The Garden Guide. I've got Russ Holley with Logan City Community Development. We're talking about the amendment to the Park Strip Ordinance, but we're also talking about water-wise usage of our water and water-wise plants and how to keep your yard looking great with less water this year. Russ, I'm kind of I guess I'm more glass half full than half empty. I think we're actually better off this year water-wise than we were last year. And I know there's a lot of talk on the news about, we're still in the drought and we don't have enough water and we're less than normal. But I've talked to a bunch of farmers, and they were irrigating this time last year. Like they were starting to irrigate their crops. First week of April, they were out irrigating their crops because the soil was dry. We had such a really dry spring, and they were already irrigating. And here we are, middle of April. We've had some nice rain. Soil is moist. We got some really great moisture content in the soil in October. So we have saturated wet soil instead of really dry soil. And hopefully we'll continue with this weather pattern and have a lot more water than as anticipated. So got my fingers crossed.
Yeah, me too.
I know we're talking about maybe doing some things at Logan City to help conserve water. Have you been part of that conversation, or is that beyond your realm?
I have not been part of that conversation.
Okay. I know Paul Lindhart has got some things coming to City Council to talk about how we can conserve a little bit better. But, there's some great options for our homeowners out there. And a lot of people last year, even with water restrictions throughout the valley, were able to keep their yards looking really good with maybe once a week applications where they were used to doing 2 or 3 instead. So I think, as a community, whether you're in Logan or whether you're in Smithfield or whether you're in Hiram or wherever it is in the valley, there's a lot of things we can do to help conserve water, but still keep our landscape green and beautiful. And hopefully we won't have 3 weeks of 100-degree temperatures. So, all right. Al, are we going to take a break at the bottom of the hour? All right. So you are welcome to call in with questions or comments. We've got phone lines open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
KVNU News Update here at the bottom of the hour. I'm Will Feelwright. It's brought to you by UNI Furniture. The Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office on Friday filed charges against 2 men in connection to a deadly shooting that occurred at a party on April 3rd. Ashton Ernesto Ortega, an 18-year-old of Harriman, is charged with 2 counts of murder, 3 counts of purchase, transfer, possession, or use of a firearm by a restricted person, and 1 count of a controlled substance with intent to distribute. Meanwhile, Daniel Martinez of Lehigh is charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder. KUTV reports that the shooting happened in an Airbnb rental in Draper. 1 victim died at the scene, and another was transported to the hospital where he later died. The victims have been identified as Austin Powell, a 27-year-old, and Jonathan Fuentes, a 21-year-old. Powell was shot and died at the scene, while Fuentes was shot in the head but was still alive April 3rd. He was transported to a hospital, though, where he later passed away. Ortega is charged with murdering Fuentes, while Martinez is charged in Powell's death. And as winter ends and spring runoff begins, Utah remains in drought. With 95% of Utah's water supply coming from snowpack, there is a low chance of these below normal snow levels refilling Utah's reservoirs. Brian Steed, executive director of the Department of Natural Resources, said that Utah has been in drought 8 of the last 10 years, and this year's disappointing snowpack is not going to pull the state out of a drought. The recent snowstorms were beneficial. However, they added less than an inch of water to the state's overall snowpack. And we could still see a little bit of shower activity and some snow in the mountains as the storm moves its way out of the area. It's going to leave temperatures in the mid to low 50s the next several days, with overnight temperatures in the low 30s. I'm Will Feelwright for KVNU News.
From ABC Sports. Hi, everybody. I'm Todd N. The NBA playoff field is set. Trae Young leading the way for the Hawks last night, dropping 38 on the Cavaliers en route to a 107-101 play-in game victory.
Back to Trae with 9. Young dribbling in the lane, floats it up and floats it in. Trae Young with 35 points.
On ESPN Radio, Atlanta advances to face the Heat in round 1 of the playoffs, game 1 on Sunday. In the other play-in game, the Pelicans rallied in the fourth quarter to shock the Clippers 105-101. Brandon Ingram had 30 for New Orleans, while Los Angeles was without Paul George, who had COVID. Awaiting the Pels in the first round, the Phoenix Suns. And baseball last night, Shohei Ohtani went deep twice as the Angels beat the Rangers 9-6.
First pitch to Shohei, lifts one high, and it's carrying deep out into right center, and that ball is gone.
On KLAA, this is ABC Sports.
NMLS 1817019.
What's a freedom loan? This is Rod with LendRate Mortgage. Here's an example. On the day this ad was recorded, the largest credit union in Utah quoted a 30-year rate of 4.875% with over $8,000 in closing costs. LendRate's Freedom Loan APR is 4.625% and covers 100% of the closing costs for the same $647,000 loan amount. So you get a 0.25% lower rate, a lower monthly payment, and we pay all the closing costs. Save thousands in upfront costs and get a lower rate. Call 801-APPROVE or visit lendratemortgage.com. Declare freedom from higher rates and fees with the Freedom Loan. Call 801-APPROVE or visit lendratemortgage.com.
Take your business to the next level with Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce. Whether you're looking to open a new location or broaden your marketing footprint, we'll help you expand your reach throughout Cache Valley. Serving the local business community for over 100 years, the Chamber has the staff, knowledge, and resources to help your business succeed. As a member, you enjoy numerous benefits, from exclusive discounts to social gatherings. Every month, you can choose from a variety of networking events, learning seminars, and workforce development opportunities.
Visit cashchamber.com for more info.
The Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to the Garden Guide. This is Mark Anderson with Anderson Seed and Garden. We are here answering your questions. We're talking about park strips. My special guest today is Russ Holley with Logan City Community Development. We've been talking about the amended ordinance in Logan about park strips. I think this is very applicable information for everyone who's listening, whether you have a park strip or not. But we're talking about water conservation and some things that Logan City's doing to help its residents flip their strip and do something a little bit different. If you're tired of grass and you want to use less water, not zero water, but less water, there's some new amendments to the ordinance where you can actually put some different plants in your park strip and still be under compliance. So we're quite excited about that, and it's the opportunities we have to save some water. And Russ, thanks so much for being on the show. It's been great to have your information and your background into what's been going on with the park strips, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. You're so welcome. But we do have another caller waiting for us. And so we've had a couple calls come through during the break. If you'd like to join our conversation, you have questions about changing up your park strip, about doing some water conservation, or if you have questions about bugs attacking your raspberries like Lori did, or you want to plant some new vegetables, or come in and get some awesome primrose at Anderson's. They're 2 for $4. Call in with your question or comment, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. And we've got Thane on the line. Good morning, Thane. Welcome to the Garden Guide.
Hi, thanks for taking my question.
You bet.
Okay, so you ready?
We are ready.
Okay, so I live in Malad, Idaho, and 2 years ago, I purchased 50 trees from a local grower up here. They were already in the ground. They'd been growing in the ground for probably 15, 20 years. We dug them up. I had him dig them up with his tree spade and planted 50 pine trees. They're they're a blue spruce type of a tree, but they're not really blue. So green spruce.
Okay.
They're not the ones that have the really tight branches. They're the looser branches.
Right.
There's a name for it, but I don't remember. Anyway, so lost about 3 or 4 that first season, and we planted them in April of 2 Aprils ago.
Okay.
Then this last summer, even though I had them on drippers, I lost half of them, and they started to, they just kind of looked yellow, and they just kind of went.
Right.
Regardless of everything I tried, I just lost them. I have another 50 of those trees that I'm supposed to be planting here as soon as he digs them in a minute.
Right.
And I'm just scared to death I'm going to lose them again. And when I look at the tree farm where they're about to dig, they're kind of like they were the first time. They have a yellowish hue to them.
Yeah.
And even some of my trees here that we planted 2 seasons ago, this will be their 3rd year in the ground here.
Right.
There's a couple of them that's got that yellowish hue, and I'm concerned. And on these ones that have died, if you go and you take a pocket knife and cut into the bark, it's like the bark is twice as thick and it's soft, and as soon as you cut into it enough, it'll crush into fine sawdust from some kind of a worm.
So it's kind of
and I'm not.
up a little bit.
Nobody can answer me what's going on here, but I'm scared to plant the next 50.
I understand your concern for sure, because it's a big investment and it's a lot of time to try and keep those going, and we want them to be successful. How big were the root balls when you dug them up, and how tall were the trees?
So the trees were probably on average of about 7 feet, I would say. And the root balls were, I had to use my skid steer to put them in, probably 3 foot root balls.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize you get a 3 foot root ball and a tree that's 7 foot, and you're talking a 500-pound tree.
Yeah. You're not moving them by yourself.
You can't move it with 2 people even. I mean, they are heavy and difficult. Where you are located, is your soil a little heavier clay, or are you rocky? Malad's usually a little more clay, alkaline soil. So what's your soil like?
Yeah, I have everything here.
Okay.
Everything. And I got some that's just like 4 foot thick of chocolate topsoil, and then I got some that's got, it's gravelly and
right.
And it just go 10 feet and it changes.
Sure.
You know,
pines and spruce are really susceptible to to too much water, and they don't like heavy clay soils. And around here in the valleys where we're at, we have a lot of heavier alkaline clay soils, and those trees are used to growing in rocky. You think about where all those pines are, on the mountainside. They're growing in straight rock almost, and so they do better with really good drainage than they do with poor drainage. And unfortunately, what I would suspect, where your trees are going a little bit yellow, they're a little bit iron deficient, and so iron's really going to help a lot. We don't want to fertilize them too much, but like a slow release nitrogen with some chelated iron would really help to green those up. But what I'm afraid is happening is that your soil is trapping all the moisture, and it's great that you've got your trees on drippers. That's the best way to go.
Well,
we were just talking about.
If I may, the trees that are down on the flatter ground where it's just like 4 feet thick of topsoil, those are the ones that are just thriving. The ones that are up in the gravelly soil are the ones that are dying. And not only that, I've got 14 up in the gravelly soil, and every one of them died.
Okay, so that's where we got to check your soil moisture then, because if you've got that kind of varying conditions, you may have to regulate your water system a little bit different. But for the most part, when we see trees planted in the middle of the valley and they're struggling, they're usually high water table or they're holding too much moisture, and so that's something you definitely want to watch for. And they don't need to be watered a lot, especially where they've been newly transplanted. You want to saturate that soil really well, but let it dry out in between waterings. And if you're in a gravelly spot, maybe your water's just draining through and it's leaching a lot of that available iron or nitrogen out of the soil, so they're not getting enough food as well too. So this is one where that slow release nitrogen with the iron's really going to help. But then I'd probably say, in some of those locations where you're struggling, go out there after you've watered, wait about 3 or 4 days, and then go out there and then check the soil and see how much moisture is there in the soil down 3 or 4 inches. And if it's still moist down 3 or 4 inches, you don't need to water again and let it go. But if it's starting to dry out down 3 or 4 inches, then we probably want to saturate them again.
Okay, do you have like fertilizers coming, like a 24, 48, whatever?
Yeah.
Is there a specific nitrogen mix you want me to try and purchase to put on these?
The best one for a slow release is Tree and Shrub Food by Fertilome. It comes in a 20-pound bag, and it has all the micronutrients in there, as well as a soil penetrant to get it to penetrate down in the soil, and it has a 3 to 4 month slow release nitrogen in there. That would be a great option. But if you want to go with like a commercial fertilizer, I'd probably say the 16-16-16 would be great. If you can get one with a little sulfur coated urea in there, that's going to give you that longer lasting nitrogen, and that would work. That would work great.
When I planted these, I put a couple of cups of that 16-16-8 in the bottom of every hole.
Okay.
Could it be possible that I over-fertilized it?
Possible. Yep. That's enough nitrogen. It could burn the fine root hairs on the bottom of that root ball, and it would definitely stunt the growth of the tree initially and cause it to not create more roots. Usually when we're planting trees like that, we'll dig a really extra wide hole, backfill with some nice soil in there, and then a light fertilizer on top, or just even a root stimulator, a mild fertilizer, just for the first couple of months to kind of get it established. Then do a fertilizer application on the surface. But down in the bottom of the hole, that could possibly have damaged the roots a little bit as well.
Where I was telling you that these have if you go cut into the dead ones right now, the bark crumbles away and it has the fine dust from insect, worm powder.
Yeah, it could be.
You think that could possibly be a problem? If it is, what would that be? What would that be?
It could be from insects, but in most cases, once the trees die, then it's a great place for bugs to go and hang out.
Then they move.
And so it could be after effects, after the trees died, because usually smaller trees like that, you're not going to have too much of a pine bark beetle or a borer type of activity going on with a younger tree like that. So.
I realize I'm taking a ton of your time, but I have one more quick question about it.
You bet, Thane.
I had so many grasshoppers here 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
Or maybe last year, I can't remember, but it was incredible. You couldn't walk without stepping on 10 grasshoppers.
Yes.
And there were thousands of them on these trees.
It's
and I just heard that they
parting the Red Sea is what we call it. So.
I sprayed them and they said the Severn product would not hurt the trees.
Correct.
Could it have hurt the trees?
Very unlikely. 7's pretty mild. You'd have to mix it like extra strong for it to burn or damage the trees. And that's a great product, good option for controlling the grasshoppers. And we'll probably have a lot of grasshoppers this year again too. So there's 7's good, permethrin's excellent, Nolobate for some long-term control. There's some really good options for you out there, Thane.
Okay, thank
All right.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for calling this morning.
Bye.
All right. So we've got phone lines open still, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, and we've got Kathy on the line. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
We're doing great.
If I put Killzall out on my garden, is that going to kill it for a long time or a short time?
That is an excellent question. Killzall, which is essentially the same thing as Roundup, biodegrades in 4 to 7 days. And so 4 to 7 days after you have sprayed, you could till that up, plant right in there, and have zero effect on any of your plants.
Okie doke.
Yeah, it breaks down very quickly. Yeah, it breaks down really quickly. So that's why so many farmers use it, because they can go through after they've harvested a crop, they can spray that, kill all the weeds that have grown in around their crops. A week later, once it all starts to die, they can just till it up and plant and go again. And so it's a very versatile product. If you want something that's going to biodegrade even quicker, there's a new product out that's called Decimate that does the same thing. It's a completely different chemistry from Roundup or Killzall, but it biodegrades in 24 hours. And so it's
will it kill those nasty little goat head things that are growing in the front of my yard?
The puncture vine or burr buttercup, yes, it does a great job on those. The warmer the day, the faster it works, but usually you can see results in 24 to 48 hours, and within that time, you can just till it, turn that soil over, and plant right back in there, and the Decimate's completely gone. So.
And that was my next question. How warm does it have to be to spray it?
Killzall and Roundup and Decimate, they work in cooler temperatures as well as warmer temperatures. You want the plants to be actively growing, so they need to be growing aggressively, and that's like right now. And temperature doesn't really matter, but the warmer it is, the faster it reacts. So you're just going to see results quicker, but it's still going to work even in like 45, 50-degree daytime temperatures as long as the weeds are growing actively.
They are, amazingly.
Yeah, those darn weeds, I know. Stupid burr buttercups, they're awful. So
waiting for my hyacinths, and they're not coming very fast, but my weeds are doing well.
Weeds are just loving this weather. They are absolutely loving the weather. So, all right, Kathy.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, Kathy. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
All right, we got about 15 minutes left in the program. You are welcome to call in and join us here on the Garden Guide, 753-5868, 753-KVNU. We're talking water-wise plants. We're talking, salvaging blue spruce and killing weeds. And we've got some great things going on at Anderson Seed and Garden. Open house is next weekend, the 22nd and 23rd. We've got bare root sale going on right now. We have some great primroses that we just picked up yesterday that are 2 for $4, so it's a great time to come in and get those as well too. And we've got some great Easter basket ideas at the store too. It is Easter tomorrow. I keep forgetting that it's Easter for some reason. And we've got some great Easter basket ideas. We've got some really cute gnomes that are on sale that are like bunny gnomes. If you haven't seen the bunny gnomes, you got to come check out the bunny gnomes. They're really, really cute. So I know Russ came in and got a bunny gnome the other day. So no, you didn't come in and get one?
I'm coming in later.
Okay.
Isn't Easter kind of known? Flowers are kind of a part of Easter, really, too.
Yeah,
I mean, as far as the traditions for everybody, too.
Tulips and daffodils and Easter just kind of all go hand in hand. And the flowers have been just amazing this year with the cooler temperatures, even with the snow and the like 20-degree temperatures. We had teens a couple of weeks ago. The bulbs have still just done amazing, and they bloom longer when we get some cooler temperatures. So, tulips and daffodils and Easter just kind of go hand in hand for me. So, and I've had a lot of customers coming in asking about tulips and daffodils the last couple weeks because they are blooming. You got to plant those in the fall. It's like you can't do shortcuts on those. We can't just magically make them bloom in your yard in the springtime. You got to plant them in the fall. So September, October, hyacinths, daffodils, tulips, crocus. That's when we're going to plant those, and that's like almost we almost call them idiot proof, because you can just dig a hole, throw them in there, water them, and they just bloom the next year. Mother Nature just kind of takes care of all that.
I have 4 that grow up through my lawn in the front yard every spring, and then they get just mowed down.
Oh,
and
yeah,
and then they'll come back next
and they come
spring.
back the next year. Yeah, they're just like so easy. So if you
have the lawn down at the corner.
So even if you don't have a green thumb, bulbs are about the easiest thing that you can do. So, all right, let's get back to our park strip, flip the strip ideas. And okay, so just to recap what we talked about, Russ, trees every 30 feet.
Correct.
So we want to do trees every 30 feet. If you want to go from like a traditional turf like Kentucky bluegrass, you can switch to a more drought-tolerant grass like a turf-type fescue or a turf-type rye or a blend like our Mark's Mix would be amazing for that. Or you can switch over and do more of a landscape water-wise park strip, but you still need to do 30% plant material.
Yes, 30% plant material. Natives and water-wise are great.
Yeah.
The community development actually planted a little demonstration garden on the boulevard at 3rd East. It's one of those intersections that they create these funky triangle medians as the boulevard traverses diagonally up the hill, and we have a variety of native plants in there. They have different bloom times. Some bloom later, some bloom earlier, different colors. So those types of plants are great. You can utilize bark or rock mulch in that 70%. Boulders are fine. Flagstones, boulders. We just try to keep things below 3 feet in height for safety reasons. You need to be able to see people on the sidewalk and vice versa.
Yep. And you want a little bit of water available to go in there. So we got to have some irrigation for those plants, especially for the trees. If you're going to spend the money, trees have gotten a lot more expensive the last few years. Like they're 50% more expensive than they were 3 years ago, just because of supply and demand and availability. And as soon as COVID hit, everybody wanted to plant a tree. I mean, this is like my perfect example of what was happening in 2020 spring. Everybody's kids were home from school. They were homeschooling. They were helping their kids, and I would literally have a gentleman or a gardener come in, and they would be like, "I don't care what tree you sell me. Just sell me a tree because I need to get out of the house and go do something. I don't care what it is. Just sell me a tree." Well, that happened all over the country, and so everybody just kind of bought up that year's supply of trees and part of the next year's supply of trees because everybody was just so bored and they needed to get outside and do something. And so we had families outside planting trees and planting shrubs. Well, it's created a little bit of a supply issue, and so trees are more expensive. If you're going to spend that much money on a tree, you need to irrigate it. It's got to have water. So yeah, we don't want to have problems with that. We do have about 8 minutes left. You're welcome to join us on the show. Russ Holley with Logan City Community Development. We're talking about the amendment to Logan City's ordinance on park strips, but this is something you could absolutely do whichever community that you live in. Make sure you check with your community development, depending on where you're at, and see what they're doing. But I know this is something that the state is kind of pushing as well, too. Do you see something coming down the pipeline from the state about being able to put more water-wise plants in? Is that something you see in the future?
Oh, yeah. Water conservation is a huge issue at the state right now, and there's all kinds of programs to either, adjust your sprinkling system to be more efficient or swap different plant material out.
Right. And last year, the extension was doing water evaluations for homeowners, and they would come and check your sprinklers for free. They had a grant last year where they were coming, they were doing it for free, and they would analyze your sprinklers and the coverage and how much water they were putting out, and then they would help you like regulate your sprinkling system to be much more efficient and keep your lawn looking great, because they know exactly how much water your lawn needs with maybe 2 applications per week. And in most cases, most people are overwatering. They're overwatering their lawns. So if you start watering correctly and get a good idea of how much water your sprinklers apply in a certain amount of time, Do you know how much water your sprinklers apply in half an hour, Russ?
I don't.
Maybe you should have the extension come and check that out for you. You should apply 1 to 1.5 inches of water per week to your turf, preferably in 2 applications. And so if you don't know how much water your sprinklers apply in a certain amount of time, like say a half an hour, if your sprinklers are putting out half an inch of water in a half an hour, and you want to water, 1.5 inches per week, you either have to water half an hour 3 times a week, or you could go 45 minutes twice a week and still apply the same amount of water, and it would be more beneficial for your lawn than doing the 3 times a week. So it's kind of critical that you know how much water your sprinklers are applying so that you can adjust them properly. When I ask people that, most of the time they say, I don't know. My sprinkler guy just set them so that they would go, for a certain amount of time on every day, and I wake up in the morning and the sidewalk's wet, so I know the sprinklers have worked. That's kind of how we do things sometimes. I think now's the time for us to kind of change our attitude and actually find out how much water our sprinklers are applying, and then set them properly, and you'll be amazed at how awesome your lawn looks with half the water what you've been applying in the past. We do have a phone call, right, Al? Kevin is on the line with a question. Kevin, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Thank you. I was wondering, I know there's a couple of different kinds of 2,4-D.
Yeah.
Like that amine and...
ester.
What's ester?
Ester,
yeah.
Yep.
How do you know which one to use and when's the best time to apply it?
That is an awesome question, because if you use the wrong one at the wrong time, you're in trouble. So 2,4-D kills broadleaf weeds for the rest of our listeners. So 2,4-D is a common broadleaf weed killer. Won't hurt turf, won't hurt grass, but it basically kills everything else. The 2,4-D amine is a salt base, and it is less volatile. And so it will work very well in moderately cool temperatures. I'd say probably 60s and 70s and 80s. It's going to work great. But when it starts to get hot, it can burn your grass a little bit. The difference between the amine and the ester is the ester is much more volatile, and it's used by a lot of farmers because they can spray down their rows of corn, and it won't hurt the corn because corn is a grass, and so it won't hurt their corn, but it kills all the other weeds. Well, what they'll do is they'll spray down between the rows, and then when it gets hot, it will volatilize and it will drift, and it will kill everything around it as well too. In your yard, that drift is bad. Because it will drift over to your grapes, or it'll drift over to your tomato plants, or it'll drift over to your flowers, and all of a sudden they'll start dying as well too. So with the ester-based 2,4-Ds, you got to be really, really, really careful. It's not a great option for a smaller yard. It's more of a commercial farm application type product. So I'd stick with the amines and avoid the esters if at all possible.
Okay. Right. So is it optimal to start spraying now? Or?
As long as we're getting daytime temperatures in the low 60s and 70s, great time to get after some of those broadleaf weeds. If you go with a product like Weed Free Zone, where it has 2,4-D in it, but it has dicamba and MCPP and carfentrazone in it, it's going to work in much cooler temperatures. So even if you're getting daytime temperatures as high as just 50 degrees, it will still work under those colder temperatures. And so you do have some options for some cooler weather products that will be super effective, even if we're having cool, wet weather like right now. So, yeah, you've got some good choices,
right.
Kevin.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, Kevin. All right, we've got just a few minutes left in the show. Probably can't sneak another call in, but thank you to all the listeners that have called in with questions or comments. Russ, any other last comments about switching out park strips? People don't need to go get a permit to change their park strip, do they?
No, they do not. You can go out there and do that, and you don't have to do the whole thing. If you just have a portion you want to try to tackle now, go for it and see how it works, and then do another section later.
Yeah. Sometimes those projects get overwhelming. You look at it, you go, "Oh, this is like such a big job. It's going to take me months." Great suggestion. Just do a part, see how it works, move on to the next. Maybe you'll inspire your neighbors to do it as well too. So don't hesitate to get out on the web and look at what the state has put together. under Flip the Strip, or Flip Your Strip. I think it's Flip Your Strip. But just Google that, and it will come up for the state of Utah. And there's some great options in there, some ideas on what you can do differently than just putting turf in your park strips. And they're beautiful, and they have like wonderful plant material in there, and some mulches as well too. And you could really do something different, save some water, and keep your yard looking beautiful and different as well too. But if you like turf and you want to keep turf, but you don't want to water as much, don't just stop watering it. Let's put a different type of turf in there and make it so it will be much more drought tolerant and stay green while it's getting less water and still look really good. So there's some really great options where we can kill that existing turf off and plant a new variety in there, and all of a sudden you're only watering once every week or 10 days instead of 2 or 3 times a week, and keeping that grass looking great as well too. So there are some options out there, and we can teach you at Anderson's how to kill that grass off and put some new grass back in there in a very short amount of time. It's something we've done a lot ourselves, but also with a lot of our customers as well too. So our time is just about up. Russ, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been great to have you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for sharing that information, and I think it's not just applicable for residents of Logan, but it's for our entire valley. And thanks for taking the lead and making some changes here in Logan City on park strips and trying to help people be more water conscious. So.
Anytime.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you so much. So we will be back next week with another edition of the Garden Guide. Don't forget, it is our spring open house, April 22nd, 23rd. We've got a sale going on today with primroses, 2 for $4. It's a great deal. They're in full bloom. They look amazing. And the bare root sale's going on right now. If you need anything last minute for Easter, we got some great ideas at Anderson's. Don't forget about our bunny gnomes. You got to come check them out. And we'll be back next week with another edition of the Garden Guide.
Changes. We're with you. News Talk KVNU Logan. 102 FM, 610 AM. The voice of Northern Utah.